Every anime reviewer has its mandatory SAO complaint video, some more than one, but I decided to do one myself. However, it is not a complaint, it is a tribute. This is a short episode review of the time Sword Art Online was good. Season 1, episode 3 actually, which is also a Christmas episode of some sort. The episode starts with him on a guild, and to our surprise, we didn't get to see the second floor. We got a time skip. The Vanguard guilds got to floor 29, but Kirito is actually taking his time in a lower floor. He lies about his level, maybe because he wished to not be left out of them. As someone who's often alone, he don't want to leave people behind even more. While they were getting to know each other, we see that the leader of the party is a good contrast to Kirito's analytical view. While Kirito says that the difference between his party and the Vanguard guilds that was dealing with the higher floors of Aincrad was that they knew how to farm experience effectively. And most places with better XPs are controlled by certain guild that take them as their spot and don't allow others. Meanwhile, the leader is easygoing. They say that is motivation. Although they are lower level, they wish to protect everyone else, mostly than risk their lives for just levels. But this is being difficult since dealing with the group, Kirito notices that Sachi isn't being confident in her new position as a frontline. We have to remember that everyone in this game is actually trying to survive. There is still no meme of the if you die in the game, you die in the real life. Being useless here is a burden that not many want to deal with. Sachi is with her friends from real life that want to help her, but they also wish she could try harder so they don't need to risk their lives so much for her. Later we meet Klein, and we notice that Kirito is still feeling bad for leaving him in the main city, where he and his friends would most likely die in the first episode. Even if Klein doesn't care about this, our protagonist can't forgive himself for that. And even if this episode is not about Kirito beating a boss of the floor, like episode 2, this was the kind of episode that shows how sour the things on the top floors were going. Since this is their new life, everyone was started to get used to the grind of the MMORPGs. But the thing is that this grind is endless. Some people could hope that it would be over in some days, but it started to look like they would be staying inside of the game for a long time. And we also got to see the first consequences of being locked down, and I don't mean by quarantine, I mean inside of the game. Different for us, a lot of people there had to start to fight for their lives. We see Sachi starts to tend to end her self-thoughts. The episode shows that not everyone is taking this easily. Sachi is afraid of dying, and living in this world is a constant threat. Kirito had to go after her because she ran away from leveling with her friend group. This hits differently after the quarantine. I can see how your actions and decisions can cost lives of everyone you like. I was wishing that I could hang out with my friends at 2020, but this was a constant risk to my mother that is of a riskier age. And this feeling of not being able to do nothing about being locked up at home, just working and staying inside, with the feeling that you got no options, was suffocating. I can now relate to Sachi, I would say. SAO is MMO, and if you ever played anyone, you know that things can get rough, especially with the constant dread that you can die for real if you commit a mistake. However, Kirito says that he and Tetsuo will do their best to protect everyone, and that their guild is not greedy, so she didn't need to worry about. With later we see Kirito promising to himself that he would keep Sachi's alive. Well, about that, while the leader of the guild was out to buy their house, they decided to go to the dungeon in the top levels, and eventually they fall for a trap. But don't worry, we have our main edgelord protagonist who can save everyone and flex about this, right? For the first time we see Kirito fail, and don't save the day at the end. This is what made me think that SAO was great. Okay, I was a teenager, but that still got me thinking the same thing once again. This might have been predictable, but I was glad that they did this, because the anime needed that, and this failure was the chance to make a better protagonist. Spoilers, it didn't. If you watched SAO Abridged, you know that Kirito is someone who's going crazy whenever he remembers Sachi. She literally made him insane. It was something that shaped his character in the Abridged series. By the way, I recommend watching if you didn't, it's still on YouTube and it's fucking great. Continuing with the episode, we get another time skip. It is December 24th, Christmas night. Kirito is trying to get an item that can maybe get Sachi's back. Unfortunately for him, the item is useless. He gave him to Klein that was outside the boss spawn, that noticed how distant their relationship got at the moment. As for him to make it to the end, the anime gave us the feeling that this is the last time they would probably talk for the rest of the show, and maybe a farewell. In his room, with this failure, our protagonist contemplates ending himself. And at the end of the episode, we get my favorite SAO moment. For me, this is peak Sword Art Online. I have watched Alicization War of the Underworld entirely and nothing topped this. Before dying, Sachi left a recorded message for him. She knew that she would eventually die, and Kirito saying that he would protect her would make him guilt himself for this. Sachi, the one that wished they could end themselves together, wished now that he continues to live. She's happy that she met him, and happy that he was strong enough to take care of himself. So she asked him to move on, so he can find the purpose of her life, because Kirito's became Sachi's life purpose. And to break our hearts even more, she sings for him to not waste any time on her final message. SAO might not be good, it might be the most beaten anime of all time, but this episode reminds me why I loved it when I was younger. It wasn't about the cool fights, about the harem with the generic protagonists, or the sci-fi escapism, but was about what I've seen in this single episode. But anyway, in the next episode we get introduced to Silica, the lolly.